Drama. It's everywhere. It's at the Olympics. It's back here in the States. It's at journalism conferences. Everywhere you turn, it's drama. I guess people's primary ambition is not to be bored, huh? I guess that's why you want to watch the Stephen A. Smith Show coming at you right now. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you at the very least 3 times a week over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio. By the way, as always, let me pause to show a moment of appreciation for all the support I'm receiving from my subscribers and followers. We continue to climb. We've now exceeded over 753,000 subscribers on YouTube, over the digital airwaves of YouTube. And, of course, we've exceeded over 2.1 million downloads over the last couple of months or so on iHeartRadio. So I can't thank y'all for the love and support enough. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming, okay? To continue to like and follow the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on YouTube, just click the bell to get notified of all of our new content, and boom, you too shall consider yourself the newest member of the Stephen A. Smith Show family. While you're at it, make sure you don't forget to pick up a copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes, now in paperback. Just go to straightshooterbook.com. Once again, straightshooterbook.com. to get yourself a copy. Got a lot of stuff to get into in the sports world, in Olympic competition, but I got to get to this first, okay? This is where I'm getting started, and it's in the world of politics because it's making news. On Wednesday, GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump made an appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists Conference, that's the NABJ, where he sat down for an interview moderated by ABC News correspondent Rachel Scott, Fox News host Harris Faulkner, and Semaphore reporter Kadia Goba. During the discussion with Trump, Rachel Scott's opening question to Trump was about his past racial comments, and needless to say, Trump had a noteworthy response. I'm not going to even interfere. I want y'all to see this for yourself. Let's go to the videotape. Play tape.
You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. Including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and, you know, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Wow. Well, you heard Trump there, and there have been many questioning the decision to have Trump at the conference at all, including my friend Roland Martin, as we discussed on yesterday's show. The decision was also denounced by Black Enterprise CEO Earl Butch Graves Jr., who decided to withdraw from his appearance on a separate panel discussion at the conference. Before I even get into that, let me say this about what Trump had to say just now, or what you just saw him say. I had no problem with the question that Rachel Scott asked. Rachel Scott is an outstanding reporter and correspondent for ABC. What she said and the question that she posed was accurate. You're showing up to the National Association for Black Journalists as a presidential candidate, particularly one on the conservative side where you know the vast majority of African Americans are not going to vote. You have to expect piercing questions that are going to make you uncomfortable. And instead of Trump responding the way I believe he should have, which I'll get into in a second, he showed his petulance, his belligerence, his immaturity, and his lack of leadership as far as I'm concerned in terms of being presidential and understanding the decorum that should come with the position. Now, here's the deal. If you are Trump, you're looking at Rachel Scott, you know what you should have said. What you should have brought up was some of the things you tried to allude to. You know, when you think about Trump's economic policies and how it helped black voters in his first term, there's a lot of people that make that argument about him. There's a lot of people that say that the economy was thriving before COVID came about. They talked about that. They talked about how he should compare his record against the Biden record, particularly with inflation ravaging our country at this particular moment in time. They talked about that. He also should have talked about more specifically what he's done for historically black colleges and universities. I know Roland Martin alluded to him potentially not telling the truth about that, but Trump should have made his case. Okay, he should have made his case if there was a case to make, okay? He should have talked about low inflation during this term. He should have talked about the economy being robust, okay? He should have talked about border control and how open borders, which has taken place since the Biden administration has taken office, is something that we've all lamented since 10.5 million immigrants have crossed the United States borders illegally. We should have talked about those things. And all you had to do was answer the damn question. But instead, he's like, you didn't even say hello, how are you, and all of this other stuff. I mean, come on. Come on now. And then, and see, this is the thing that bothers me too. Because I'm watching Harris Faulkner on Fox News. I'm not going to denigrate and disrespect her. But I watched her on Fox News this afternoon, the day after this panel discussion took place, or this discussion with the former president took place. And there were 3 panelists. There were 3 moderators. Harris Faulkner was one of them. And she's sitting up there talking about how it didn't go the way that it was supposed to go, and watching Trump's deputy communications director, I forgot her name, lambasting Rachel Scott and Goba, and talked about they were unprofessional. How were they unprofessional? How are they unprofessional? Harris Faulkner, you were up there with them. I understand that you're working at Fox News and you don't necessarily want to go after a former President Donald Trump the way Bret Baier may have when he asked them very poignant questions. Go back to Fox News from a year ago or so. Watch Bret Baier's interview with Donald Trump and the questions he asked the former president, especially when he picked him apart on how Trump proclaims to hire great people to work for him, yet numerous people that used to work for him wouldn't endorse him, and he called them all types of names, all over the place, like 10, 11 different people. And Bret Baier dissected it with a fine-tooth comb, used this quote, said what he said about each individual, and asked them the question. Rachel Scott pretty much did the same thing. What's the problem? And if you're Harris Faulkner, how you going to let anybody go up there and talk about your colleague like that when you know they didn't do anything wrong? Asking tough questions is not a crime, especially coming from members of the Fourth Estate. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And he knew in advance what was coming. Now, major props to Donald Trump, because he's the first Republican candidate, if I can recall, to show up at the NABJ. Yes, they've interviewed candidates before, but it was usually via satellite. It wasn't them showing up in person. He showed up in person, albeit at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time on a Wednesday, which is the first day, which is when most people wouldn't be there. Fine, fair enough, though. He showed up. He showed up. But I think that he dropped the ball and he missed an opportunity. And why did he miss an opportunity? Because instead of showing his knowledge as the former president, what he was privy to, and the information that could have debunked or knocked down some of the accusations that were being thrown against him, in his estimation, he went to the same old, his petulant route. I mean, it's very rude, very nasty. Now, we can't sit up there and point to racism. Why can't we point to racism? You know why? Because Rachel Scott asked the question when Caitlin Collins for CNN was asking him question when she interviewed him one-on-one in front of a town hall. He called her questions nasty and rude. He's turned against anybody. If you ain't pro-Trump, you anti-Trump. And he acts the same petulant, belligerent, disrespectful, rude, immature way towards everyone. He's equal opportunity. So when you bring up race, all white folks are going to do, or anybody who supports him is going to do, is show the litany of other people he said the same thing about who don't happen to be black. That ain't the argument to make against him. It really, really isn't. But having said all of that, he still handled it wrong. He still missed an opportunity. And just a couple of weeks after a failed assassination attempt against him, where he had the ultimate visual with the American flag behind him while Secret Service agents surrounded him, while he raised his fist and talked about fight, 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 while blood was trickling down his ear and the right side of his face. He had it all. And all he had to do was chill and try to be presidential and let other people spew their rhetoric. But he didn't do it. He didn't do it at all. And as a result, now we're back to talking about that Trump that we wanted out of office because he was too divisive. And we can't, and this is where I'm disgusted. I'm personally disgusted by Trump because I wanted him to take advantage of the moment to force us all to look at his policies and how he governed and juxtapose that to how Kamala Harris would govern based on some of the policies she may have supported so we can decide what is best for America. But we don't get to do that now. And we don't get to do that because when he acts like that, we know how divisive he's going to be. We suspect he's going to be on a revenge tour. We don't know if he'll govern because of it. Okay, then we hear about Project 2025, which is really about the Heritage Foundation and some of their ideas as it pertains to a conservative movement that they've been putting out there for conservative pundits and elected officials to follow. And we're going to bring that up, okay? And we're going to speculate about what role Trump plays because some of his former employees and what have you were people that were working on Project 2025. And even though that's a political issue, and I'm all for discussing that, as we already have on this show, my problem with it is that we don't get into the real issues. I'm not talking about Project 2025 there. I'm talking about his behavior and how that's the focus instead of what he has to offer the black community compared to what Kamala Harris would offer. Because remember in 2016, where Trump really, really made noise, is when he showed up, I believe it was in Detroit, Michigan at the time, and a bevy of other places. He looked at folks in the audience who happened to be black, and he said to them, what do you got to lose? In other words, the Democratic Party hasn't done anything for y'all. That's what he was saying. And yeah, some people saying, so one minute he gets 6% of the vote. And then in 2020, he gets 8% of the black vote. And they were speculating that now it could grow to 18 to 20% for this election. And then he acts like that, and then you find yourself saying, oh, hell no. Hell no, we don't need more of this for 4 more years. We don't need this. We need an adult in the room. We need somebody who's going to govern. We need somebody who's going to act right. This is what pisses me off. Because he's gotten us away from comparing his record in governing to that of Kamala Harris, to us now focusing on his behavior. I'll get back to more of that in a second because that wasn't the only thing that Trump did. Don't let me get started with what he said about the vice president. I'll get back to that in a moment. Let me transition for a quick second to Butch Graves Jr. because he issued a statement. The CEO for Black Enterprise, he walked away from a panel discussion that he was supposed to have just this morning at the NABJ conference. And he issued this statement, quote, I must emphatically state that I disagree with the decision of the leadership of NABJ to develop a panel featuring one presidential candidate, in this case, Donald Trump, in a session that does not include any black media organizations, and for that matter, black male journalists. It appears that this panel was developed to accommodate the presumed Republican nominee. and not potentially ask any of the difficult questions to garner responses that black people want, need, and deserve to hear. In fact, this decision was indeed one of folly and cowardice and not in keeping with the historic tradition of the NABJ and black media as a whole. Let me say this to you. I'm not going to say that the people up there weren't doing their job with the questions that they were asking. But I don't blame Mr. Graves for making his decision one bit. There is no excuse while at the NABJ that former President Donald Trump didn't have a representative from a black media organization asking him questions. There's no excuse for that. Zero. It's the NABJ. It's the National Association of Black Journalists. How can a black-owned media business not play a role in interviewing the president? That was egregious. He's right about that. He's also right about a man not being up there asking him a question. Just like it would be wrong to have 3 men up there asking questions, it's wrong to have just women up there asking Donald Trump questions. It's wrong. And it's yet the latest example of the thoughtlessness on the part of the NABJ. There's no way around that. That's how I feel about it. I completely understand where he's coming from because on far too many occasions in the past, I've looked at some of the decisions that have been made by the NABJ, and I'm like, what are you thinking? What are you possibly thinking? So I don't blame him one bit. Having said all of that, I have more than that on my mind. It's the vice president. I'll get to her and Mr. Trump in just a second. You're watching the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airwaves of YouTube and listening to it on iHeartRadio. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for Stephen A.'s Sports Picks. I'm about to go bananas right now because today I'll be making picks for some of the biggest names in men's basketball who are playing in the Olympic Games right now. But you might be saying to yourself, how do you do that, Stephen A.? I'll tell you how. I use Prize Picks, of course. That's right. You see, Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money, daily fantasy sports game where you select 2, 3, or even up to 6 players and predict if they'll have more or less on their projected stats for the game. And it's not just basketball in the Olympics we're talking about. Oh, no. There's also baseball, the WNBA, tennis, golf, even boxing. And get this. Sign up with code SAS and Prospects will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 plus lineup. You don't need to win your lineup to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup on Prospects and you'll get $50 instantly. Now, let's look at all my winning picks for today. Let's go to number 1 on the list. Giannis Antetokounmpo for Greece. More or less, 28.5 points. I'm going to go with less on this one. 28.5 points is a lot in Olympic competition, 40-minute games, whatever. I understand he could do what he wants to do or whatever. I just don't know if he's going to be the ultra-aggressive individual we see him during NBA games on a night-in, night-out basis, where it's 48 minutes a night going against the best talent in the world, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're going to see other people involved. It's not that he can't score more than 28 points. I just don't think he'll need to be as assertive and aggressive as normal in order to do all of that. So I'm going to go with less. I think he's going to have about 25, 26 points, okay? I'm going to go with less on this for Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, okay? Let's go to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Canada, Team Canada. More or less, 31.5 points, rebounds, assists. We're going to go with more because it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You know he can put up points. You know he can put up assists. You know he's got the size from the guard spot to get his share of rebounds as well. 31.5 points is reasonable. I think he pulls that off. Let's go to his teammate, former New York Knicks, now a member of Toronto Raptors in the NBA, but obviously on Team Canada as well. R.J. Barrett, more or less than 27.5 points, rebounds, assists. He's so up and down, you know. That's my thing with R.J. Barrett. You know, he could do it. Whether or not it's going to be this particular game, I don't know. I'm going to go with less on this one. I think it's going to be less than 27.5 points. Last but not least, Jamal Murray, Denver Nuggets, also Team Canada. more or less than 8.5 points. He's Jamal Murray. He's a champion. He's a sniper. He's a big-time shooter. He operates in the clutch. The more pressurized the moment, the more he shows up for the most part. Got a lot of love and respect for that brother. I'm going to go with more in this case for him, okay? I'm going to go with more. Those are my picks, ladies and gentlemen. Flow with me on it, okay? I'm usually right about these things, in case you didn't notice. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio. Believe it or not, more on Donald Trump. You know, he made more headlines during his appearance at the NABJ. If you can't beat him, then question their ethnic origin, it appears. Rachel Scott, once again, asked Trump if he believes Kamala Harris was a quote-unquote DEI hire. Take a listen to his response.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask, continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States is multiracial. She has also been a member of the Congressional Black Caucus as a senator. She's a graduate of Howard University, an historically black college. So Trump saying what he said, it's just annoying. It's just annoying. You know, when we look at our original Constitution, what have you, and it talks about black folks being 3/5 of a man, for example. If you had a speck of black in you throughout history, particularly with white racists in America, at the very least in the past, you had a speck of black in you, you were considered black. So let's get that out the way. Number two, you're just looking at Trump and wondering, what in God's name are you trying to accomplish? And then I thought about what I said on Cuomo on News Nation last night with Chris Cuomo. And he talked about what was Trump's objective, what could he possibly be thinking by saying some of the things that he's saying. And one of the conclusions I deduced was that, you know something? You know, most of us, whether right or left, lean towards the center. We like compromise. We want to be reasonable. We want to make sure that there's decorum and professionalism and decency in our society. There are folks that operate on the fringes, and they squeal the loudest, and we hear them. And a lot of times, if you're thinking about Trump, as is the case with other politicians on both sides from time to time, to be fair, you want to appeal to your followers, your constituents, to make sure they know that you're still that dude. See, when you look at some of the American citizens that rally behind Trump, you know, Hillary Rodham Clinton was wrong when she called, you know, some of them deplorables and stuff like that. That was wrong. It's the wrong thing to say. Okay? I'm telling you right now, each and every single one of us work with Trump supporters. We work alongside them. We work for them. We've used to work for them. We mingle with them or whatever. Everybody's not going to be honest and forthcoming about their support for him. But make no mistake about it, there's a whole bunch of people. You don't get 74 million votes and all of them standing front and center saying, yeah, he's my guy. No. A lot of them ain't going to say anything. They just go to the polls and they pull that lever for him. Or they press that button for him. Make no mistake, that's how it goes down. And so when we sit up there and we allow ourselves to engage in incendiary rhetoric for anybody that would support him because we think about some of the things that he says as opposed to a lot of the things that they believe he may have done, all we're doing is being transparent in our vitriol towards somebody else that could potentially do us harm. We don't know. because they'll know how we think about them, and they won't admit it, but they'll say so quietly. But in the end, what I'm trying to say is this. You're Trump. What's the number one reason? Let's get down to this. What's the number one thing Trump followers love about Trump? You want me to tell you what it is? That he doesn't give a shit. That he talks smack about politicians on Capitol Hill, about the policies that they put forth, about a society that he believes they've contaminated. He's given a voice to the voiceless because there's a whole bunch of people, millions upon millions of people out there that felt that Capitol Hill and the residual impact it had on our society, they felt they weren't being heard and they were being cast aside. And then Trump comes along and he speaks their language. They don't want him showing decorum. They don't want him being respectful. They don't mind if he's a bit misogynistic. They don't mind if he's a bit xenophobic. They don't mind if he's disrespectful. They don't care because it's what they want to do. But why do they want to do that? Because they believe that folks on Capitol Hill have gotten away with far too much. And they don't want to hear compromise. They believe the degradation of our society as we've witnessed things transpire over the years. It's their fault. And Trump is going to sit up there and he's going to have control and he's going to make them march lockstep with him, or he's going to assist in getting rid of them. And they love it. And they love it. But what he said about the vice president, Kamala Harris, was wrong. It was off. It was disrespectful. It's no cause for it. Unless you believe it appeals to folks far more than we realize. And that's what Trump believes. And that's what he's playing towards. Now, after hearing of Trump's comments, Harris, of course, had her response at a campaign rally in Houston yesterday. Take a look.
It was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better.
Yes, the American people deserve better. They deserve better than him acting that way. They deserve better than a petulant child disguised as a grown man running for the highest office in the land. But folks ain't trying to hear that because they're looking at how he's governed. They're looking at the economy. They're looking at security. They're looking at crime. They're looking at our borders. They're looking at all of these things. And that's what Trump should have focused on. Somewhere along the way, Kamala Harris is going to have to focus on that too, at some point. Now, as it pertains to Trump, Trump has repeatedly attacked his opponents and critics on the basis of race. He rose to prominence in Republican politics with false theories that former President Barack Obama, the nation's first black president, was not born in the United States. Birtherism, remember that? Because that's what it became known as, was just the start of Trump's history of questioning the credentials and qualifications of black politicians. Vice President Kamala Harris is the daughter of a Jamaican father and a former prominent professor at Stanford University, and had an Indian mother who was a biomedical scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, both immigrants to the United States. Trump seems to have difficulty understanding that people can be multiracial. In some people's eyes. In my eyes, he's just going back to a familiar playbook. Because it works for him. That's really what it comes down to. Coming up, Team USA men's basketball got another win, and I'll talk about it next after a word from our sponsors. Major League Baseball is in full swing and the NFL season is fast approaching. So if you want to get into the middle of any of that action and win some big time money, no worries, because Prize Picks has got you covered. You see, PrizePicks is a daily fantasy sports app where you can select 2 or more of your favorite players and then pick more or less on their projected in-game stats. And you can choose a number of players from just about any sport you love to watch. It's just not football and baseball. Oh no! There's boxing, soccer, cricket, and even basketball for the Olympic Games. So go ahead and choose Ohtani, LeBron, and Coco Gauff, all in the same entry. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. And then sit back and watch. And get this, sign up with the code SAS, and PrizePicks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 plus lineup. You don't need to win your lineup to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup on PrizePicks, and you'll get $50 instantly. Pick more. Pick less. It's really that easy. It pays to get paid on Cash App. There are a lot of things in life that you care about and want to keep safe, like protecting your kids, your home, and your hard-earned dollars. That's a feeling that you can actually feel really good about. Just like you can feel good about depositing your paycheck on Cash App, knowing you have security features like card lock and transaction alerts, so you never ever have to worry if your money is safe and or secure. And when your money is safe, you can actually rest easy. With Cash App, instead of worrying about your money, you can spend time checking things off your wish list, like watching your favorite team win the championship, being pampered on a 7-day cruise, going to your class reunion, and actually looking good while doing so. Those things make you feel good, just like you can feel good about depositing your paycheck on Cash App. That's money. That's Cash App. Download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here with the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. The USA men's basketball team was once again dominant yesterday, beating South Sudan 103-86 to improve to 2-0 and lock up a spot in the quarterfinals. All eyes were on Steve Kerr's roster decisions after not playing Jason Tatum or Tyrese Halliburton in the team's first game versus Serbia. Tatum was in the starting lineup, finishing with 10 points and 5 boards, while Halliburton chipped in with 6 points in 8 minutes off the bench. Meanwhile, Joel Embiid went from starting in Game 1 to being the only guy who did not see the floor in the second game. Anthony Davis started, but it was Bam Adebayo coming off the bench, who had maybe his best game for the national team with 18 points and 7 rebounds. Asked about people questioning his lineup decisions after the game, Steve Kerr had this to say. Quote, "The NBA is so popular worldwide, and the regular season is kind of a soap opera. And so we understand that, and social media takes over and everything becomes so dramatic. I think we need to give these guys more credit. They're here to win a gold medal. They're pros. They're committed to each other." End quote. Final game of group play will be Saturday at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time versus Puerto Rico, for those of you who care. Here's the deal. That's a real easy thing for Coach Steve Kerr to say. And it's not that he's wrong in any way. It's just that it's not that simple. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrese Halliburton didn't play. We didn't say anything about that. You know why we didn't say anything about that when he didn't play? You know, the other day when Jason Tatum was benched, because Tyrese Halliburton is a young guard. He was in the playoffs, although Indiana got to the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston this year. You know, we understand that there's levels to this. And when you look at a Drew Holiday and when you look at some of the other talent that exists on Team USA, all right, it's going to be pretty difficult for him to crack the lineup and stuff like that. We understand that for the most part. What we're saying is that Jason Tatum is a superstar in this league. He's the reigning defending NBA champion. See, when we sit up there and we talk about this kind of stuff, this is the thing that drives me nuts. Everybody act like they don't understand what the hell I'm talking about. It's Jason Tatum. We understand the greatness of Kevin Durant, maybe the greatest basketball Olympian ever. We understand who LeBron James is. We also saw Team USA beat Serbia by 26 points. You can't find time for somebody like that. You're talking about, oh, it's very difficult to play more than 10. Well, what 10 players are better than Jason Tatum? He's 6'9" and can play the 1, 2, 3, or the 4 position. When you bench Embiid, that's understandable. You're going against South Sudan. They're running up and down the floor. Their success is primarily predicated on perimeter shooting. Joel Embiid is never 100% healthy. He's had foot injuries. He's had knee injuries. He's had back injuries. That might not be a game his all-world talent needs to participate in. We understand that. Jason Tatum was healthy. Jason Tatum is spry. Jason Tatum is 6'9". He's a 6'9" dude that can play guard and forward. He can play 4 different positions. What possible excuse could you have for sitting him on the bench and then to tell him beforehand, there's 10 dudes we're going to play for you? Well, let's go down the list. LeBron, who's approaching 40. The Bam Adebayos of the world, along with Anthony Davis, that's a given. They're playing the 5 for you. We got that. Kevin Durant, sure. Going to play Kevin Durant ahead of him. I got that. Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, Derek White. You got 2 dudes that are his teammates for the Boston Celtics, whose job is to defer to him. But in Olympic competition, he's riding the bench while they're playing. Stop it. Stop acting like y'all don't know what the hell I was talking about. You know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not talking about Steve Kerr. First of all, you should be able to find a way to play more than 10 dudes in a 26-point victory because guess what? You're that superior. You actually could find a way to do that. But that's neither here nor there. But when you elect to bench somebody, you could have benched Derek White, who's been playing well. I understand that. You could have benched Drew Holiday, like you did, to insert Jason Tatum into the starting lineup for the game against South Sudan with Steph Curry in the backcourt. What's the problem? We weren't talking about Steve Kerr and his coaching in terms of, oh my goodness, you only played 10 dudes, not all 12 dudes. We were saying you went to Jason Tatum before the game and said we're probably not going to be able to find you minutes to a 27-point per game scorer, or all NBA first team the last 3 years, who is the reigning, defending NBA champion. And he flying across the ocean to participate in Olympic competition, to sit on the bench. Y'all don't understand that. Y'all don't understand how that is not something that is supposed to happen to somebody the caliber of Jason Tatum. Do that to Derek White. Do that to Tyrese Halliburton. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve to play because they're quality players. I'm saying if you're going to do something like that, do that to them. Do that to a Joel Embiid against the South Sudan because we don't want Joel Embiid running up and down the court like that when you don't really have to worry about an opposing big man because that's not what their squad success is predicated on. So this is a game you probably will be able to take a rest. I saw Bam Adebayo clapping back at my man Brian Windhorst because Brian Windhorst suggested that one of the bigs wasn't going to play, and he suggested it would be Bam Adebayo instead of Joel Embiid. And Bam took some kind of offense at that and tweeted something out with some lyrics from 50 Cent. I got all of that. But Bam Adebayo has a point because he can run up and down the floor in a way that Joel Embiid might find problematic. So you need to sit this one out, big fella. That makes total sense. Just like if you decided to bench Jason Tatum in a game against Serbia, well, you got a knee injury or you got an ankle injury or you got a back injury. We need you to sit out for this one. We got this covered. That makes sense. But to sit up there and go to him before the game, knowing he had no physical ailment whatsoever, knowing he was ready to go, and to look him in the face with a straight face and say, well, we're going to probably bench you because we got 10 other dudes that we're comfortable playing before you. How could you not think that would affect him? How could you think that's a good thing? That's all I'm trying to say. I see people coming after me, and they'll remain nameless because there are people that's trying to come at me that's in this business. They just want clicks, and they just want to be heard because nobody gives a shit about them when they're on the air. So they're trying to get attention from me, and I'm not going to give it to them. But to challenge me like you don't know that I'm making sense. Come on, man. Come on, y'all. If you disagree, you disagree. I got that part. But come on. It's a salient and decent argument that I'm making. It's Jason Tatum we're talking about. It's Jason Tatum. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's Jason Tatum. No, he doesn't have the personality that sizzles, and you love seeing him with his son pregame and postgame doing the interviews and all this other stuff. The brother's a hell of a player, and he's a champion. And he's the reigning champion. He's an all-NBA first-team player for 3 consecutive years. He's the real deal. He is not somebody that you sit on the bench. 17 minutes, just 4 points and all of this stuff the other day. So what? So what? I don't give a damn if he scores no points. He can't have 0 minutes because you got 10 dudes that should be out there before him. That's nonsensical. And it's not about coming to win the gold. We know that that's the ultimate priority. But Steve Kerr has achieved too much to not know how that looked. Just because he was class personified and professional and called it a humbling experience for him doesn't mean he wasn't pissed off, doesn't mean he wasn't hurt, doesn't mean he wasn't embarrassed. And if Steve Kerr was so right and so righteous, how he go from playing 0 minutes to being in the starting lineup the next game? Because you know you shouldn't have done that shit to begin with. Period. Your tweets up next to close out the show in a minute. You're watching the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Don't go anywhere. I love your tweets. Be right back. Let's go to some tweets before we get on out of here for the weekend, because I got a lot to do this weekend. So this will probably be the last time you see me for a little bit. At Sports Guy Sean 0 writes, that's Stephen A. Smith. If the Goon Squad had LeBron James as their 6th man, and the Monstars had MJ as this 6th man, both in their prime, who's winning in a game to 21? Well, I'm always going to go MJ. I mean, that's just your way of asking me about MJ compared to LeBron. I'm always going to go MJ. The only edge I will give LeBron James is longevity. No one has ever been this good for this long. But LeBron at his best against MJ at his best, I'm going with MJ. I'm going with MJ, especially if they had to guard each other. I'm definitely going against MJ. Definitely going against MJ, just so you know. Next tweet, please. At NBA World 24, right, Stephen A., who do you think will take the biggest leap next year in the NBA? You know, if I had to pick a sleeper, I would pay attention to Sacramento. You can't say a big leap because Minnesota was already in the conference finals. So I understand that. I think we got to pay attention to Orlando. Paolo Banchero is the real deal. It's a tough one. Got to think about it, but I would tell you off the top of my head, I mean, even though we expected stuff from them and they ended up losing to the Knicks in the first round, I think with Paul George there and Philly retaining Kelly Oubre, Tyrese Maxey, still having Joel Embiid, I think Philly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up in the NBA Finals. I'm not saying that's going to happen over my Knicks now. Don't let my Knicks get got Mikal Bridges, kept Anunoby, still got Brunson and DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. Don't let my Knicks get a legitimate big man. Don't you do it. Julius Randle come back. Don't you let my Knicks get a legitimate big man now. It's going to be on and popping. But until then, I got to look at Philadelphia 76ers. Can't ignore it. I would say them. I would say them. Next tweet, please. Give it to me. At NBA 77 Younger, right? Stephen A. Smith, Shaq versus Gobert at 5 foot each. Who you picking? I'm going to pick Shaq all day, every day. Because Shaq was a monster. Colbert is formidable defensively. He would have had no answer for Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal would have shoved him aside like toilet, like paper. Okay? And Gobert don't have that kind of offensive repertoire to his game. Shaq looked to destroy and demoralize you. Kobe once said it. Shaq was a mean dude on the basketball court. That jolly giant that you see on television and, you know, joking around and dancing around, who's comical and funny as hell, that ain't the dude that was on the basketball court. On the basketball court, he was a man-child. He was Sergeant Harris's son. Move out the way. I'm here to destroy you. Don't stand in my path. That's Shaq. Him and Gobert, even size. Shaq, all day, every day. Next tweet, please. Give it to me. At DV0NCH. I don't know what the hell that stands for. Stephen A. Smith, are ghosts real in your opinion, or is it nonsense? I never think about it. I know that there's certain things that are spooky. You know, you look at a house that looks haunted and stuff like that, spooky. You hear, you know, sounds and stuff like that. Yo, there's this hotel. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get sued. But there's this hotel in the Bay Area. It's not me, but my assistant, my bodyguard, some of my colleagues, they left the hotel. They were scared. They were hearing noise. They thought they were seeing things. Now, it didn't bother me. I didn't see anything. I wasn't worried about it. They hear the slightest little noise. Like one of my boys, because he's such a chicken, I always mess with him. I do that Friday the 13th sound. You just hear that sound. Oh, it's it. That Friday the 13th kind of sound. When you hear Jason creeping up on you or something like that, I do that to him because he's such a chicken when it comes to that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It don't faze me like that. You know? I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Ow! Now, I like that movie. I like that song. But my latest memory of Ghostbuster is when lightweight contender Frank Martin, they call him the Ghost, right? And he stepped into the ring. And he came in there first. If you remember, before Javante Davis came out, they were playing Ghostbuster. Ghostbuster, who you gonna call? Ghostbuster, you know? He was mocking him, telling him, I'm gonna kick your ass, I'm gonna knock you out. And then laughed walking into the ring. And sure enough, knocked him out. That's just the way it goes, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I got to get on out of here because I'm heading to the National Association for Black Journalists Conference. By the way, First Take, my day job for ESPN, will be on live from Chicago tomorrow morning at the Hilton Hotel in Chicago, Illinois. I am en route there. Although I've been on vacation, I'm coming off just to do that show for the folks at the NABJ in the city of Chicago. Your boy Stephen A. is on his way. I'll be in the house. Looking forward to seeing and talking to everybody in the days and weeks to come. So stick around. You never know when you'll hear from me because I'm prone to just do that even when I'm on vacation. Oh, let's get to work. I got something to say. That's what you could do when you have your own platform. But anyway, I really enjoyed the week, talking a lot of stuff. I can't wait to get into more of the sports stuff with NFL, NBA, and everything in between. So stick around because there's a lot of action coming our way in the weeks and months to come. And God willing, I will be right here talking about this stuff with you, to you, and for you. Until next time, everybody, this is Stephen A. signing off. Enjoy your week and be blessed. Peace and love. Talk to you soon.